Welcome to the 615 Locker Room Podcast. I'm your host, Wormy, with Uncle Matt here. This is our first episode of this new project that we're working on. We want to be sort of a all Nashville sports kind of related. I have a focus with Nashville SC. Mac knows a little bit more about the Titans and stuff. I'm going to try to learn to keep up with them for the show. But yeah, so this being the first episode, I just kind of wanted to start off by introducing myself. I go by Wormy on YouTube or Dylan, whichever one you prefer. I've been a lifelong basketball fan and just recently got into soccer around a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was when my friend actually invited me to a game at Geo's Park to watch USA versus Ghana, and I fell in love with it, and I kept going back to watch Nashville SC games, and I've tried to keep up, try to learn it as quick as I can. All the soccer fans out there know that there's so many different aspects to it across different leagues across the world. Um, so I stick to MLS pretty much. But I watch a little bit of football, mostly college football, so you'll hear some Tennessee Volunteer talk from me. I know Matt's a Vandy guy, so he can help us out there, unfortunately. Uh, but yeah, I make Nashville SC vlogs, but I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, so I'm about 3.5 hours away. And I kind of wanted to do something that was a bit more consistent week to week. And I feel like this is a great platform for that because I don't need to, plan too much ahead for it. So I'm going to let Matt go ahead and introduce himself.
Yeah, man, appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this project with you. Obviously, go by Uncle Matt on YouTube, Twitter, all the usual social media sites. Been following Nashville SC from the USL days on. Been soccer fan basically my whole life, and that was one of the things that kind of interested me in kind of teaming up with you on this project because I thought we had kind of an interesting dynamic of kind of the lifelong soccer fan versus the person who's kind of newly gotten into it as Nashville SC's coming into Geodis Park. Because I think that's kind of like what our fan base is largely kind of based of is like the lifetime soccer fans who grew up never even thinking we'd ever have a soccer team in Nashville, and then like the people like you who just made one trip out to Geodis Park and were immediately hooked like that. So I thought from that perspective we'd have kind of a unique thing on that approach to things. Obviously, we both fans of Nashville SC, both content creators on YouTube, and connecting through that. So it just seemed like a fun opportunity to come out here and have another outlet to kind of chat about stuff. Shout to the clouds, so to speak, about our opinions on sports and everything, and not necessarily have to hear the person next to you in Judas Park saying, "Yeah, well, I think Hany Mukhtar's not playing so well right now." I was like, "Well, you're an idiot." So, good space to be able to vent without having to hear maybe the outside voices as much.
For sure, I agree. And you kind of mentioned some of what we're going to talk about. We're going to get into kind of sort of talking about last game and some of the conversations surrounding that. So, Matt, what did you think the team looked like last game? Is our first kind of hurtful loss, I would say, this season. I know we started off with a 0-0 draw, which it took me down, but a lot of other people I knew were kind of okay with that. But this one was super. It was super hurtful to watch us lose to Cincy, of course. But what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, obviously you never want to see your team lose, especially like on a home game against a kind of semi-rival in a team like FC Cincinnati. But I kind of came into the season with a little bit of hoping for the best but expecting the worst type of season after what we went through last year. So I'm trying to find the positive signs, the positive lights, and I think there's been plenty of those to go through. I mean, you look at this match here this past week in Cincinnati, and I said it in my video. I think the biggest difference was just they got their chances and they finished them. We missed ours. We had the missed penalty, a couple other shots where they got some good last minute blocks in. Their keeper had a really good game. Hany Mukhtar missed another one where it was a pretty open tap in looking type opportunity at the back post. They got the penalty, they got the free kick. Sometimes in soccer where you don't see high scoring games, it's those fine margins that define it. So I still thought we looked good. I still thought the attacking play was pretty solid. I think we're still kind of growing into being that type of team. There's almost like a learning curve that comes with being more of an attacking team where you're kind of used to not having that many opportunities. You got to learn to finish them is kind of the next step. So I'm pretty good about where we're at right now. Like I said, hate to lose, never want to lose a match, but that's one I can kind of deal with. I can kind of suck it up early in the season and kind of say I think we're moving in the right direction, and there's brighter days ahead.
So, me being a new soccer fan and trying to kind of like gather some of the stuff, I found myself using a lot of using the excuse a lot for kind of our like shortcomings this season of like it's a completely brand new coach, it's a completely brand new system. So, being a seasoned like soccer guy, at what point does that become not an excuse?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because soccer is, unique where you have such a long season. There's going to be almost, 40 games when you add in some of the cup and tournament matches that we'll play throughout the year. So, I think last year, you got to round 10, 12 games in, and you could that's where you could really kind of see, yeah, that things were kind of moving in the wrong direction. So, you're always trying to build, you're always trying to grow, and you just want to see the continued progress. And I think we're in a good spot for that right now. One of the things that's nice about Nashville SC, MLS in general, compared to the rest of the world, Premier League. I'm a big Manchester United fan. Those seasons are 100% based on what you do during the regular season. The regular season champion is the champion in most soccer leagues. MLS is a little bit more of the American format where you've got the regular season. You want to do really well in the regular season, but you get in the playoffs and anything can happen. I think Nashville SC has kind of shown already we're going to be one of those teams that's going to be in the mix for, I would think, upper half of the table playoff spots, which will put us in a good spot once that comes around. So I'm pretty encouraged on the season so far. I think having the type of season we had last year also just makes everything seem a little bit better. When you're just having the slight bits of joy and like even, you're relatively new to this, but even the good years we had for Nashville SC, where we've been more of a, you know, defense first team. A lot of 1-0 wins, a lot of 2-1 wins, a lot of 0-0 draws. So just even seeing more attacking soccer, seeing more chances, more opportunities, even though we're not, maybe finishing as many of those as I'd like to see, we're creating way more than we previously ever had. And I think one of the things that's most encouraging to me about this season so far is one of the things that's been a common denominator, a common theme that Nashville SC fans have wanted to see pretty much since day one is we needed to find ways to get goals from people other than Hany Mukhtar because, Hany's been our superstar, our MVP, our main guy. And throughout most of the Nashville SC time in MLS, he's kind of been it. We've had, I don't know if we've even had anybody that scored more than like 5 or 6 goals beyond him in a season. So this season, I think we've scored now, I want to say 9 goals, and I think we've had 7 different people scoring goals out of those 9 goals. So that's a huge step in the right direction for Nashville SC, where it was like Hany Mukhtar and then maybe like 2 or 3 other people, like Jacob Schaffelberg. I love Jacob Schaffelberg. He's hugely popular, fan favorite. I think his like highest output in a season is like 2 goals. So I mean, it's not like even he like one of the far next best players that people would bring up. It's not like he's been a high output goal scoring player in the past. So just getting other people on the score sheet, just getting more goal involvements from other players, I think is a huge encouraging sign. And like I said, never want to lose, but I'm trying to be a little more positive this season because last season was so negative. Like if you go back, you watch my videos from like those last few games of the 2024 season, I was just barely even wanting to be there, barely even wanting to like make the videos. So I'm trying to, at least for this first part of the season, keep on the positive side of things. And I think even with the loss, even with, the draw earlier in the season with New England and the loss to New York, I think every game, it hasn't been like we've been outmatched. It hasn't been like we haven't, shown signs of brightness. So I'm pretty encouraged about where we're going so far. If, skids can happen, bad runs can happen, but, I think we're just on the wrong side of some of the luck right now in terms of like Hany missing chances, in terms of blocks coming in terms of goalkeepers playing really well against us. So that tends to kind of shift in soccer where sometimes you're on the wrong side of the lucky stuff and sometimes you're on the good side of it. So I'm feeling pretty good right now.
That FC, the FC Cincinnati keeper was going nuts during that game.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, like, probably like around like the 20th minute in, I was like sitting on my couch and I was just, I like genuinely started smiling because I was like, this is a completely different team. Obviously, like we
Mm-hmm.
have new players, but it's just like I caught sort of the end of Gary Smith, and that wasn't really fun to watch. Not even the fact
Mm-hmm.
that like we sucked. It just it's heavy defensive play style is just like it's a bit boring in my mind. But like I just am so happy watching the team this year because I feel like even though we're making mistakes, even though we haven't won every single game, I think it's been entertaining soccer, kind of how you were saying. And with the Cincinnati game, and maybe I'm thinking looking at it in a weird way, but the only two goals they got was like when we put them right in front of the net. Uh, I know
Uh,
that the free kick, like that one's a bit more challenging, but like we still those are we kind of gave them those goals in a way. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. You're spot on that. I mean, you're looking at FC Cincinnati is projected to be one of the top teams, not only in the Eastern Conference but in all of MLS. And basically they got their two goals from basically being handed to them. A free kick right on top of the box. A player as dangerous as Evander is for FC Cincinnati. That's it's not a guaranteed thing, like you said. It's still a tough make, but I mean that's a deadly opportunity to give up, and then a penalty kick with basically in the last 2-3 minutes of regulation time. That's given them the chance there. We pretty much held them at bay for the most part of that. So like you said, that's very encouraging to me that we're just not getting run through, having things over the top, and talk about a little bit about the Gary Smith style play. Even after the penalty went in, I had a different feeling about this team than I would have in other situations, because I think like in the Gary days we were so limited in attack that if we went down like that towards the end of a match, our best hope, our best opportunity was we'd start throwing like Walker Zimmerman up top like a forward and just trying to hit long balls up to him and hope that he could like somehow get on the end of him. This one, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, we got, Ahmad Kassam, we got Johnny Perez, we got Schaffelberg coming off the bench, we got Hany still out there, we got Surridge. There's so many different ways I thought we still had a chance to score goals. And I mean, Teal Bunbury came on, who's, not, been the most popular player at all times and the last couple of years for National SC. He comes on, his first touch of the game is a header that hits the crossbar. So I mean, I think that as much as anything is a sign that National SC is moving in the right direction. That we give a penalty basically at the end of the game, and you're still sitting there as a fan thinking, I think we got a chance here. We still can get a goal back in this situation, and there's a lot of different ways we could have gotten it. Didn't end up happening, but once again, it's all positive vibes right now.
Yeah, and I mean just like losing to a PK in the 90th 91st minute, whichever whatever it was, that's so hard to like to
Mm-hmm.
fathom. That sucks more than just losing outright, in my opinion. Um, and speaking of the penalty kick, I've noticed a lot of people like on the Nashville's soccer club mediums kind of debating that a little bit, um, if that was the right call or not. And you have some refing experience, I know. So what is the rule, and then also what do you think? Like, what do you think about that? Because I know the handball rules gets mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, so from a referee perspective, obviously I've never refereed anything as high level as like MLS or anything like that, but we follow the same, laws of the game that the MLS follows. There's tweaks here and there for different, levels, different sports like that. But the handball law is essentially supposed to be applied the same way across all sport of all of soccer. Um, and it's by far probably the worst role we have to deal with as referees, just because it changes every year. Every year, IFAB, which is the governing body over the laws of the game, tries to word it in a better way. They try to make it more clear, and they just somehow every time they try to fix it, they just make it worse. Like I honestly, like if I was writing it, I would almost just, and this would be hard on referees because then you're making a full on judgment call for a referee. I would almost make it like 100% like it has to be intentional for you to call it a handball. By the laws of the game, the way they're written right now, I do think, unfortunately, it was the correct call because, essentially the way we're kind of instructed right now is we're looking for arm positioning. So, if the arms are like kind of at your side, if the ball travels a shorter distance and kind of deflects into your arm, we're probably not calling that. But unfortunately, on the one with Walker, his arm's out here. It kind of hits him here in this region. He's not looking at it. He's not like trying to gain an advantage by using his arm, which that's one of the things I'm kind of the same way with the offsides. I think the things we should punish should be the things where people are trying to gain an unfair advantage in what they're doing. Like, it's like I hate the offsides calls that we're seeing now with like the computers where like a guy's offside by a toenail, because like did he really gain anything by being offside by that much? No. Or was he even trying to? Like, but if like a guy, sticks his arm out to block a shot, or, if a shot's going on goal and it hits a guy in the arm, to me, that's a different conversation than what happened with Walker. But by the way the law is currently written, his arm wasn't in an extended position. It was kind of away from his body, hit him in the area that would be considered handball offense. So,
Mhm.
by the way the law is written, it was the correct call. Do I think the law probably needs, and I'm almost at the point where it's been rewritten so many times, I'm just like, let's just leave it alone, let referees do their best job with it. But it's the way it was. I think it was the right call. It was harsh. It's unfortunate, especially like in that key moment of the game. Like, if that happens in like the 10th minute, you're looking at it a different way than like right there at the end where you're basically giving FC Cincinnati the win for the most part. That's a tough way to lose. That makes it seem that much worse. But I do think, unfortunately, from that perspective, it probably was the correct call by the way the law is supposed to be interpreted.
Yeah, and I was reading a little bit of it, and it's like you can't like make your body unnaturally bigger. I think is like the wording ish that
Hmm.
it uses.
Yeah.
And whenever
Yep.
you're jumping like that, like I think there's an argument against it there, like that's a natural movement. I don't know that how much that matters in that sense though, but I think
Yeah, that
ultimately,
that comes up with a lot of like there's a lot of like trainings and then like video conferences that we do as referees, and that's
mhm,
one that like I've heard brought up so many times by other referees. Like, well, if you're running, your arms aren't like, you're not at your side like a penguin. That's not necessarily like a natural position. If you're jumping, you're kind of usually you know, nobody just constantly moves with their arms down at their side. So when you're using terms like natural position, that kind of skews it. But what they're basically like looking for is like, are your arms out here or are they at your side? Which is like, to your point, like you said, you don't really move that way as a human. Like your arms
yeah,
don't just stay at your side all the time. So it kind of, the terminology is a little wonky, and that's another issue that we have. But that's usually like, that would be one they'd show in a slideshow if we were doing like a training where they go, this is an unnatural position, and somebody raise their hand and go, well, when I jump, I kind of jump whatever like this, and people would be confused by it. But it's one of those ones where it makes it so hard. But like, to your point, like that is definitely something that we're like, the interpretation comes into it where it's like, well, is that a natural position? And the way FIFA usually like puts the slideshows out, and they send us a bunch of stuff where it's like, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're looking for, and it's usually like basically like anything outside of hands glued to your hips, they're calling that an unnatural position, even though anybody who's ever moved knows you don't move like that. So
yeah. I think it was the right call despite it being harsh. At the end of the day, I think that was a fair call. But so we were supposed to record our first episode Sunday, but I kind of called for a little emergency meeting today because this next topic has really heated up right now, and like, uh, I don't know if the listeners or if you are in like multiple Nashville SC groups like the Facebook, Discord, Reddit. Normally it's just the Facebook hating on Hany Mukhtar. They for some reason they've always not liked him, but like now I'm seeing the conversation of is he washed across? It's blown up across all mediums right now. And I think that's something worth sort of calling an emergency meeting and talking about because he's our most expensive player, and um, is he washed? Let me hear your thoughts first, and then I'll kind of go into it a bit more.
yeah, I mean, it's he's not had the best start to the season, but I mean he's still doing some really good things for the team. I think it's washed would be an extremely harsh way to go, even at this point. I want to say he's like still like top 10 in MLS and like chances created, and
Mm-hmm.
he's leading our team in like key passes. So he's doing a lot of things that maybe doesn't like show up the way scoring goals shows up. But he's still
Yeah.
contributing a lot. And I almost think like I think I said this to you. I said it in one of the National SC Discord chats that I'm in. I think a big thing that almost is making Hany seem like he's struggling more is that like I said, the attacking of the overall team is better than it has been basically at any point in our history. When you've got seven different people scoring goals as opposed to only Hany scoring goals, it's kind of like, well, Josh Bauer has 2 goals. How does Hany only have one? That seems crazy, but it's like it's probably just a little bit of, you know, early season, getting in rhythm, playing a new system, playing in a new way of playing. He traditionally has been a slow starter. I think like even in his MVP season when he won the Golden Boot, I think he didn't score for like the first like 5 or 6 games that season. So
It
he
wasn't that
traditionally
one.
kind of starts this.
Sorry,
Was it another one of those?
it was the one
Yeah,
right before it. The two before it, and then throughout everyone but that one is where he's been that slow starting, like you're talking about.
sure, yeah, yeah. But yeah, like it's if we get like once again like we kind of mentioned with you ask like when do you start to hit the panic button on the team? When do you start to get excited about the team? Um, One of the podcasts I listen to a lot that covers a lot of Nashville SC stuff that I'll probably reference a million times in the show is Club and Country USA, hosted by Tim Sullivan. And his like favorite word, his favorite thing to talk about when he talks about the team is small sample size. Like you'd almost think like you could never fully determine if the team's ever going to be good or not because he just always talks about small sample size. And so we're 5 games in, 6 games in, whatever it is. So it's definitely way too early to even be like talking about that. But like you mentioned the Facebook discussion. I quit the Nashville SC Facebook fan group like within like the first season just because like I think I made it through like the first couple seasons in MLS and it was the season we moved into Geodis Park that I had to leave that behind because it's just the most angry, bitter people. Like that year it was just like parking. All the people want to talk about was parking was a disaster, concessions cost this, why isn't Ake Loba scoring goals? It was like it was never like any like the positive side of things like hey the stadium's awesome, it's like a really great stadium, hey we've got one of the best players in MLS and Hany Mukhtar, one of the best defenders I was just the Facebook side of things was just so negative in the Facebook fan group. I had to quit it early on because I was just like I can't be a part of this. Like there's this guy Travis, I don't know if you follow I don't know if you follow Travis or not, but like he's up there with Denzel, Croc Block guys, like Nashville SC Twitter
Yeah.
legends. He would like jump into the Facebook group and just like troll them. He would just be like, "I'm still." He would like post on like a Tuesday after a game day. He's like, "I'm still sitting in the parking lot. What's going on? Has anybody figured out how to get out of this thing yet?" And stuff like because they were just so like annoying and bitter about everything. So I left that a long time ago because there was just like no like there's enough things to be mad about when it comes to like sports that I needed to get to like away from like that much negativity to more positive space. So it doesn't surprise me that like the Facebook group would be negative on Hany Mukhtar. And like I've seen some stuff in like some of the Discord, some of the Reddit stuff where like other people are coming in kind of like you said, and they're kind of like bringing up like, oh man, Hany's struggling. And it generally is like one person brings it up and then like 5 or 6 people come in and kind of like don't shoot it down, but kind of say, hey, here's what maybe we look on the bright side of things. He's traditionally starts slow. A lot of things are happening elsewhere. He's got these other metrics that are looking pretty good other than like, missing 2 penalties. So, you know, let's pump the brakes a little bit there. So I'm not worried about Hany. It's always makes it seem worse, in the MLS where you have like your designated players. There's only 3 players that can get that distinction, and so when they're not producing, there's like more of a spotlight, more of a scrutiny on them. So I understand that part of it, but I'm not too worried about Hany Mukhtar at this point. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Actually, I got invited to a Twitter space by a podcast called 615 Mixtape. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They're also part of
Mm-hmm.
the supporters group, I think. But
Yeah.
they had brought it up, and I kind of came in to defend, and some of the other guests just jumped on me, and I was like, "Damn, dude, I didn't realize this is bad." But they're like, he's a DP. They're using that. He's the highest paid, so he should be scoring. It's like, guys, I think the biggest thing right now is, um, I personally don't think he looks like the best player on the field, like he always traditionally has been. But I think that's because he doesn't have to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think also you got there is some outside factors. I'm not going to talk about the him like getting married and having a kid because I don't think that's as relevant as other people seem to be making it out. But it's been Ramadan, so his the
Mm-hmm.
games that he's been playing, he's been fasting during. So you're playing soccer games without any food in your stomach and potentially water. I think I'm not sure if they're allowed to drink water or not, but like man, can you like I couldn't imagine running 1 mile without like having a source of energy for the whole day. Um, so I think that part definitely plays into it in my head, um, especially because he has all this constant energy that's needing to be used as an athlete does. Uh, I think the one of the parts that I've kind of been noticing for Hani Mukhtar is like not necessarily the PKs, but just him like running straight into defenders is kind of starting to getting it's starting to get a little bit frustrating just watching him run straight into defenders and lose the ball. That's my only gripe that I really have with him because at the end of the day, penalty kicks aren't free goals. Like if they were free goals, they just put one on the board and call it. Um, but that's been my biggest gripe with Hani is just the dribbling. I know he's always got a little. There's like a little meme in the community about him doing the oversteps or whatever it's called. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, yeah. He's famous for his crossovers a little bit too much. He credits Steve Guppy for teaching him how to do that, which is kind of crazy because like that's one thing I've always thought's weird about like coaching at like the high level. I'm like, what do the coaches even teach them at that point in time? Like, don't you know how to do everything by the time you get to be a pro? But he's like, no, Steve Guppy taught me how to do these step overs, and it's like, well, he does it a little too much now. But like, yeah, I think to your point, that's been like a little bit of a gripe for fans for him, even when he was at his best, that he was like maybe a little bit too much. Too quick to try to like draw fouls, too quick to like go down on some stuff, and not always like necessarily doing the best in that regard. But and I think part of that, kind of talking about like the overall improvement of the team, I think he's got to learn a little bit. He doesn't need to do as much anymore. Like he doesn't need to be the guy that has to like beat seven defenders and then try to take a dive in the box during a penalty. Like, we've got more options. We've got more attacking threats. He can, pass more. He can run off passes more. So I think he's going to grow into that. I think he's going to get more comfortable in that because honestly, he has been in a situation where he probably felt like the whole team was on his shoulders and he had to do it all in the past. So I think we'll see as the season goes, he gets more comfortable in the new system, the new role, and we see less of that probably. Hopefully, that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, I mean we're 6 games in, right?
I think we've got New York, New England, Philly, Montreal, Portland. Since 6 games in. Yep,
We're
six
six
games in.
games into this completely brand new, like basically built from the ground up soccer. I mean, it's not going to come that quick, I don't think. So, I I say we give it time. If at the end at middle of the season, if he's just become a terrible player, then maybe we should start questioning it. But I think right now we're fine. Um, Another player that I noticed some discourse around was Schaffelberg. Uh, just kind of the with Gary Smith, we kind of used him just to sort of run and beat the left back and try to like outbeat him and then just send blindly throw across into goal territory. Um, do we think that he's going to be able to kind of change his whole style of play to fit what BJ Callahan's trying to do?
Yeah, that'll be a big test for him this season because it's definitely we don't have um, a role that really fits kind of the way he's played in the past. That kind of true wide player. We play a lot more narrow this season. When he's come on, when he's been used, it's been kind of almost in like one of the inside striker roles, like which he's probably not gonna move ahead of Hany Mukhtar or Sam Sturridge in terms of starting in one of those positions. So he's kind of in a weird spot, and having the injury early in the season where he wasn't really able to fix probably didn't help him either. So um, it's going to be interesting. He's been a great player for us. He was a spark when he first came to the team. So and he's very popular with the fan base. But it is kind of he does seem to be in a weird spot where he's kind of almost odd man out right now with the way the team's set up with the new formation, the new style of play. Like it doesn't really fit his game. So it will be a big question. Is that something he can adapt to? Is that something he can change and grow into? Which I wouldn't be surprised if he could. He plays kind of a different role for the Canadian national team than he even does for us. He's played more kind of like a wing back than a true winger for them. So I think he's got some versatility in his game. I think he's got some stuff in his game, but he's also kind of like a guy who's kind of got some interest coming from outside sources. So I hate to talk this way about players, but the MLS, the nature of it is you kind of want to if you can cash in on a player, do it, and then you can kind of reinvest. So, if he's not, come June, found a way to get a role in this team, that's probably a player that we can start, if not a European move, he's definitely somebody I can see other teams in MLS kind of sniffing around and saying, like, hey, we like what we've seen from this guy. He's played well for the Canadian national team. He's had some, really good performances from National SC. That's something where, I love him. He's a great fan favorite. Like, I'd hate to see him go, but, if we can, we basically got him for nothing from Toronto FC. So if we can get any kind of return on investment on that and then kind of reinvest that into a player that fits what we're trying to do a little bit better, it's, not the end of the world. It's, you want, I always hate, like, losing fan favorites, but, at the same time, you got to do what's best for the team. So I'll be interested to see how the season goes for him. He's definitely kind of like one guy that has a big question mark on him. And like I said, I don't think he's necessarily playing bad. I don't think there's anything against him. It's just kind of a set of circumstances has kind of gone against him this season. Change of style, change of system, injury at the start of the season where he wasn't really able to be in the mix too much. And, some other players have emerged that have kind of, pushed him down the order a little bit. Ahmad Kassam, got that guy coming in. It's going to be hard to drop him out of the team. Eddie Tagseth, man, if we drop Eddie Tagseth, there's going to be a riot. There's going to be protests outside Jonas Park if we don't have him in the lineup someday. So, and that's a good problem to have. Like, I remember, like, I saw somewhere on, like, social media or somewhere, somebody was, like, saying something like, oh, hey, given how good, our midfield has looked before Gaston Brugman has even played, should we consider, like, maybe looking to trade Gaston Brugman? And I was like, hey, guys, pump the brakes. This is, like, the first time in Nashville SC history where we have, like, guys that are kind of like 2 or 3 people to a position where we're like, oh, if this guy is having a rough stretch or if he gets injured, this guy can come in. It was pretty much we had like an 11 and then maybe a couple low K players coming off the bench. Like right now we've got, pretty good depth. We've got pretty good options there. So, I don't want to, I may have made it sound like I was trying to run Shuffleberg out of town just there. But like, I mean, if you got the guys we got starting and then Shuffleberg coming off the bench with his speed going against like tired legs of defenders, that's a weapon, man. I'm all for that. But, he's going to be one to watch as the season goes on, like what his role is, how he fits in, how he works his way in now that he's kind of back from the injury.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I think watching, like, the season already without him really being a part of it, I mean, and also once Tyler Boyd gets back, who are we putting, who's making the lineup and who's sitting on the bench? And is Schaffelberg a player that is okay with riding the bench at this point in his career? Because, I mean, like you said, there's been potential for him to go somewhere else, I think. So I don't think it'd be good for his career and people shopping him if he was sitting on a bench. So is he willing to sit that down? I don't know. I'm excited to see. I'm excited that we have depth, like you said. I mean, I've been playing a lot of FC25, and I've had trouble myself picking who to start. Apologize if you guys hear that. My dog's drinking water. But I've had problems picking lineups. Like I like this guy, but the other guy's technically a higher overall. So
I'll tell you a funny. I'll tell you a funny Schaffelberg story real quick. This, YouTube channel, is what it is. Every once in a while, like I'll get people, like come up, so like, hey, I watch your videos, I like them and everything. It's like it's usually just like other fans. It's cool. It's like, oh man, appreciate it. I was at the team store early last season. I don't remember like what I was even doing in there. I don't know if I was just general shopping or whatever. And this older gentleman kind of comes up to me and goes, hey, are you Uncle Matt? And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, I'm Jacob Schaffelberg's dad. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. When he first got traded here, we were trying to like Google, information about Nashville SC, trying to figure out like, what he was getting himself into getting traded here. And your videos came out. So we watched a bunch of your game videos, kind of get the feel of everything and helped us kind of like understand what was coming in. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, because I just kind of put the videos up. I don't really think too much about what I'm doing with them that much. I'm not putting that much thought into them. It's like to have like, this guy who came in was like a fan favorite, hit the ground running for the team type dude, and his parents were like, yeah, we've been watching your videos to like help us learn about the team. And I was like, should I be like more careful about what I'm putting in these videos? And like, just like not just like me, just like being like, I'm not a drinker, here's a Dos Equis at a game or whatever, and be like actually like try to be more like, so like I don't know, you see like maybe like the last year or so, I tried to be like more explanatory of like, oh, this is where I'm sitting at the game. This is how I got to sit at the game. This is what we do. This is our pregame stuff. So I was like, when I'm doing videos, half the time I'm not even thinking about people watching them. I'm just like, this is me doing stuff. Blah 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 blah. It's like then I have moments like that where I'm like, oh, people actually watch these for like reasons and like I get information from them. I should probably be a little bit more careful about some of the stuff that's said, and then also maybe like try to be a little bit more careful about the way I talk about players because like I don't ever want to be like the guy who's just like crapping on anybody. Like I feel like if I'm gonna like say anything negative about a player, I kind of want to explain why I think they're doing negative stuff without just being like the guy who just gets on like Facebook and goes, "This guy sucks, get him off the team" or whatever. Like I kind of want to be like, "This is why I think this guy's struggling. Maybe like he'd be a better fit somewhere else than Nashville SC or something like that." But I don't want anybody's parents to watch me being like, "I hate your son" or something like that. But that was like a crazy, just random moment, and it was like, it's like if I ever am not critical enough of Jacob Schaffelberg, it's because I think his parents might be watching me.
That's hilarious. We were at the last home game, the one before Cincy, um, and the guy sitting next to us was like, "Hey, you know Jacob Schaffelberg?" We're like, "Yeah, of course I know who that is." Like, "Yeah, I sold him his car." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "That's awesome, man. That's so cool."
Yeah, it's a small community that's in the Nashville SC bubble. You get those weird crossovers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's one of the greatest things about the city is like especially soccer not being like huge. Like Eddie Eddie Tagseth, I don't know if you guys follow Nashville SC on Instagram, but he just pulled up to us at the preseason match and was like, "Hey, do you know where I'm going?" I was like, "Matter of fact, I do, but first let me get a picture." And he's like, "Do you want me to get out of the car?" I was like, "I don't want you to get swarmed because there's a group of fans at the end of the lot." He's like, I don't think that's gonna happen." I was like, "Oh, all right, let's take a picture then." Um, but overall, I'm also not really a person who just blindly tries to crap talk players. I'm normally on the positive end, especially in like the game chats whenever it's happening live. Like people get so negative, and I'm just like, it's better to be positive about it. But that's a pretty cool story. So Matt, I know you're not a drinker, but do you partake in any other degenerate behaviors such as sports betting?
Yeah, I've been known to dabble a little bit, and I am currently out of the game right now. I usually will put like about $25 in whatever local legal you know
Mm-hmm.
service we have here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. Started like NFL football season. I had a pretty good football season. I didn't do too bad in football season, and then I was had about like 70 some odd dollars in the account at the start of the NCAA basketball tournament, and that was gone in the first round because I was like, I was team upset. I'm like, thinking the old way of like, oh, the 12 is going to beat the 5. We're going to have Cinderella stories. And then just like the top teams just won every game. And I was like, I'm an idiot over here. I was trying to like steal some money on some like big money lines and just within like the first 2 rounds dwindled down $70. I was like, okay, good sign. I'll take a little break from sports gambling here because we don't need to just throw money in and just throw it away. When it comes to soccer, I as weirdly as it sounds, I as much as soccer has been like my number one sport, by far my worst sport when it comes to sports betting. Never been able to figure out how to bet soccer. It's the hardest because like the money line, if you're going money line, it's always either so ridiculously for a team that you know is going to win. Like, Man City is going to be like minus 1,500. So why would you even put money on that versus like, draw half the time is like the best bet. And I have never done well when it comes to betting soccer. So I almost entirely stay away from soccer unless it's like both teams to score. It's kind of like the one bet I ever do with soccer, just because like every once in a while you look at a game like, I think both teams are going to score in this game. So, but soccer is by far the hardest sport to bet just because it's crazy when it comes to the odds and what you can bet there. But I dabble. I do well in football a little bit, but everything else just kind of downhill.
I don't know if you saw on my Twitter, but I have for every Nashville Soccer Club game, I have placed a $10 bet for a Sam Surge hat trick, and that to be the final score of the game. It obviously hasn't happened yet, but it's like a $12,000 payout every time, and I'm like, it could happen. It's not impossible. Is it likely? But It's just a little bit of fun that I've been having that uh, I don't know. I thought it would be funny to bring up.
That's honestly like the probably the best way to bet soccer is not actually like try to like figure out like, oh, who's actually going to win this match or what the actual like score. It's like just like pick something random like that that could potentially happen. Bet like a dollar or $5 on it, something with crazy odds, and that one time it hits, you're like, I'm a genius. I've made all this money. Cash it in the bank there because like that like half the time is like going to be a better option than actually like trying to figure out what's going to happen. Like last week, like if you'd bet like I was last season, I was saying every game I was like bet Nashville SC under every single game because we're gonna like 1-0 or 2-1 every single game, but like then we'd have like a random game where some team would beat us 4-0, and I was like, well, I didn't factor in that the other team might just beat the crap out of us. So I knew we wouldn't score, but I couldn't factor in how much the other team might score against us. So yeah, that's that. If you're gonna bet soccer, that's probably the way to do is just find some ridiculous bet that like has a huge payout if it happens to hit, but that you can still kind of like you said justify like Sam Surge might score a hat trick and we might win 3-0 and I might make a lot of money if that happens. Like just throw $5 on that and hope for the best.
You were you brought up like betting the under and then another team scoring a lot. Do you remember the like last Portland game last season?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was painful because that was one where you're still kind of like the season was pretty much a wash at that point, but then you're looking at like Portland wasn't very good either, so you're kind of like, oh, well, maybe we can at least have like a good performance and like feel good about ourselves for one match, and it's like, nope, nope, not today.
I will say they're like their intimidation tactic of like sawing the tree. I do like that a lot. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That they have some good stuff up there in Portland. They've got a good fan base. They've got a good spirit around their team. So it's unfortunate for them that they have not been very good for the last few years because they have a good support, a good team.
Matt, I have another question for you. Um, this is a hypothetical. If you could add anyone to the roster that you think would fit the system, not just like a good player for being a good player, not Messi, not Ronaldo, who would it be? Money isn't an option, but like it just someone that makes sense from anywhere in the world for whatever price. Who do you think would be a good fit for us?
So this was a tough one because I was kind of thinking, like, there's not too many teams that really kind of are playing the way we were playing. So I was trying to think, like, not just like splash out and make like the obvious pick, like Erling Haaland or like Mo Salah or somebody like that, or Lamine Yamal or somebody like that. I was trying to think who is somebody that actually like might truly be able to kind of come into the Nashville SC system and be a fit. And I was also trying to think like if there's a spot we would drop, like who would be the one spot from our team that we'd probably replace. And I was trying to think, and I was like, I was having trouble coming up with a good answer. And I kept coming back to like if we had like one more truly good central midfielder. And I was like going back in time. I was couldn't come up with anybody in the modern day, but I was like Luka Modric in his prime in this system, just being able to kind of sit in that midfield too and just like pick out passes, just dart passes all over the field. Going even older, going back to like Paul Scholes, even like somebody like that who's got a little bit of the defensive mindset, but can also make those like, key passes, find players on the runs. Like, we're getting some good stuff from Brugman early days, from Yazbak from that position, but like to another player who's just like that much higher of a level from that position just could elevate everybody around you so much in the way we're playing right now. Because those two kind of guys that we have sitting there kind of hopefully pulling the strings, if you could put somebody in there who like, really, really was a high level player at that level, that was what I was thinking. I was like, I couldn't think of who would like the modern equivalent of that be. Like, there's not too many players that are hitting those levels that like Modric and like Paul Scholes did in their heyday. So like I was kind of going back in time almost like, let me pull you back from like 10 years ago and bring you to the present and drop you into this team. I would like to do that. But like modern day players, I was like having a struggle coming up with anybody just because there's so many, like, I feel like in modern football around Europe and stuff like that, it's a lot more system based or superstar based. There's not those players that really would like, you could drop into a team and they would enhance the team. I mean, you put Mbappe in any team, you're going to be a better team having it, but it's going to be because he's just electric. He's going to do so much. But I mean, that's almost a cheat code is picking a player like that. So I was trying to pick somebody that was like, who could fit our system and do something. I couldn't come up with anybody in kind of the modern era that was like, ooh, if there was a modern day Luka Modric, and I don't know who he is right now. If I could find the modern day Luka Modric, that's who I would drop right into our team.
Yeah, I one of my weaknesses is, like I said, I'm very MLS minded, very Nashville minded. So I'm not super familiar with other players outside of especially the MLS. So that's why I wanted to ask you to get a sort of better answer than what I could have came up with. But I think I kind of was looking at future proofing the team a little bit better. Um,
Hmm. Yeah,
so
I just brought in a 40-year-old player and was like, let's drop the team. Yeah, it's like that'll work for a while.
so I was thinking like honestly I have I've always had a soft spot for Mr. Dan Lovitz, but
Hmm.
I am a little worried about what the future is going to start looking like when his like real decline in production is going to happen. So I think I would bring in some strong left back from whatever league, the best left back probably. But I think that's probably where I would start future proofing because everywhere else is kind of working itself out on its own right now in my mind.
That's a good shout. Let me think. Who would be a good left back right now? Andy Robertson's pretty good for Liverpool, but he's getting up there. He's not as young as he once was, so that'd be another old guy I'm bringing in. Ah, man, like it's weird. Like we're kind of like Nashville SC is kind of going the way the rest of like soccer is. Where like players like aren't like being built in the same way. Like they're more like less position specific and like they kind of like fill a role more than anything. So like there's not like I'm trying to think who would the best left back in the world be right now. It's like man, I can't come up with anything because there's like so many guys who like don't really play that same role the way they used to. So it's that would be a good shout though because Dan is definitely unfortunately a guy who is he's having a little resurgence last year. You talk about like him having like a drop off last season. I was worried about him because like I'm like you, he's one of like a guy that I've liked on the team for a long time, and last season was a little bit not his best, but I think he's been a guy who's benefited from kind of the resurgence of the whole team this season where he's bounced back. But yeah, he's I want to say 31, 32, so probably is something Nashville SC is going to look at. And I do kind of think like looking at a bigger picture outside of just like pipe dream, who could we possibly get? I think that is probably something that's kind of, I mean, not too soon down the line. Because I want to say he's even like in a contract year. He might be in the last year of his contract, even where
Mm.
we may be looking at some younger options come next season. So maybe something where I need to do a little more research and figure out who is the best left back in the world, and let's see how we get him to Nashville SC.
Just a little quick side note. It's kind of a funny story. I was going back on Dan Lovitz to see like when he joined Nashville through his like Instagram, and I think he it was whenever he first came into the MLS. I don't believe it was with Nashville. It may have been with another team, but he like posted an announcement about it, and someone just commented, and I'll bleep this out in post production if we need to. But they just said MLS is a dog, and like it just says liked by author, and it made me crack up that Dan Lovitz just sitting there like yeah that's kind of that's funny, and then I don't know why.
Yeah, no, he'd been around for a little while before he came here. I want to say he was with like the San Jose Earthquakes. Or maybe I'm mixing him up with somebody else. But he's been in the MLS for a little while. He had a hand stints with the national team before coming to National SC, but by the time he got here, he wasn't in the mix with them too much. Maybe he was with Montreal. Was he with Montreal? I don't know. He's been around MLS and everything like that. But yeah, I can definitely see like the bigger picture of coming to Nashville and coming to MLS and outside people being like, that's like you said, not the best in the nicer way of saying it.
Do you want to lead us off for the looking forward to this Sunday? Is that when we're playing, or are we playing on Saturday? I know it's a day game again.
I believe, yeah, I think we're back to Saturday. Let me double check just for. We are Saturday 1:30 on the road at Charlotte. Yeah, so this I kind of mentioned it, some in the videos and stuff like that. But this is the thing about the Cincinnati game is it was kind of the start of a tough stretch after some easy, not easy, but winnable games with like Montreal and Portland in those early games. But now Cincinnati's tough. Charlotte's looking really good to start this season. They've got obviously the big signings for them this offseason were Wilfred Zaha and Tim Ream. Zaha, Premier League standout. Tim Ream been playing in the Premier League for years, U.S. national team member. But they've also got a young guy, and I'm going to probably mispronounce his name, Patrick Aubameyang. He almost reminds me of Pierre Yimerick Aubameyang guy. So they got some good players there. They've been one of the better teams in MLS to start the season out, top tier in the East. Going there on the road, it's going to be a tough matchup. It's one where like MLS has tried to sort of force them to be our rival because we kind of came in around the same time and didn't have a natural rival with like, some of the other teams that were already in. Like every time there's like the MLS rivalry week on Apple TV or Fox or whatever it's been in the past, like that's who we've had to play, which is fine. It's whatever. I mean, it's like they're actually you think on paper you're like, oh, North Carolina, Tennessee, they're right next to each other. You in Knoxville, you're pretty close, but like from actual Nashville, I think like Charlotte's like 8, 9, 10 hours away. So it's not like we're way closer to Atlanta. We're way closer to Cincinnati if we're going off proximity rivals. But they're good. They're having a good start to the season. Going on the road, obviously tough. But I think, like I said, coming off what we've seen so far from the team this season, I'm pretty encouraged about us. I think we'll have chances to score. I think we'll have chances to win. But, same thing on the other side. They're going to be a tough team to get matched up on. One thing I kind of like, just kind of looking at the way they've played so far this season, they're playing Tim Ream as a left back because they've got pretty good starters at center back, but they didn't have a natural left back. So, you're looking at that, and he's like Tim Ream, national team player, played in the Premier League for like the last, decade. But he's like 33. And so, you got a 33-year-old center back playing left back. If you got like Ahmad Kassam, Johnny Perez, even Hany Mukhtar running at that guy, that's a matchup I'm looking to exploit if I'm Nashville SC. Getting a little pace, getting a little quickness against a older center back who's having to play in a wide left back position. That's one area if I was BJ Callahan, I'd be circling that on the board. I'd be like, this dude's a good defender, but pace, mobility, that could be an exploitation spot for us. I think it'll be very similar to what we've seen most of the season. I think it'll be a competitive match. I think they'll have their chances. We'll have ours, and much like the Cincinnati game, I think the end result will come down to who takes advantage of those chances.
Yeah, I've heard it's a pretty tough matchup, and I know last year I think the game that I watched we ended like 0-1 Charlotte, I believe was the score. So,
Mm.
I mean, and just from the little research I did on Charlotte, uh, I'm expecting it to be a tougher game. But like you said, that I didn't think about that exploit there. So maybe we can take advantage of that and get in there and score some. I'm expecting at least one goal from our side. Uh, if if I were to predict a score, I would. I think I'll go 1-1. Uh, Matt, you didn't mention no score, so what would you think?
I just think there's always going to be goals in these games. I've been wrong about this a little bit. Like last week, I think I had us 2-2 with Cincinnati, ended up 2-1, so I wasn't too far off. I'll go 2-2 again because I think they'll have their chance. I think we'll have some chances. I think we'll clean some things up. We'll have, closer to a full strength lineup. I think Andy Nahar will be back in. He got a little bit of a rest coming off the international break that he had. So I like our chances to get some goals, but I also think we'll be a little bit susceptible. It's a road game. Those are always tough in MLS, so I'll go 2-2.
2-2. I think that's a pretty fair call.
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked a lot about Nashville SC here. I mean, that's kind of always going to be our main focus is the boys in gold, the home teams, and things like that. But it's always a good opportunity to kind of look around the league and kind of keep up to date with what's going on, especially in a week like this where we had like some pretty big news. Sometimes it'll be a quiet week and there won't be as much to talk about. But this week, long-time Kansas City coach Peter Vermees was fired. He has been coach at Sporting KC. They might have even been the Kansas City Wizards when he first took over. He's been there since 2009. And he got fired this week. Second coach already fired in MLS this season, which is kind of crazy. Like we said, 6 games in, there's already 2 coaches that have gotten the sack. But I think unfortunately for Peter Vermees, kind of the writing had been on the wall for a while for him. He was in kind of a similar boat, from just kind of following their fan base, kind of following the news around the team to kind of the way we felt about Gary Smith here, where, appreciated the success. He's a former MLS Cup winner for them, a former U.S. Open Cup winner for them. They've made the playoffs for almost every single season that he was there as their coach, which is, almost 20 years. But the last few years, it seems like things were kind of going downhill. The tactics, from the fan base sounded like they were a little outdated, a little behind the times. It seemed like they mostly wanted him to do the right thing and step away, and maybe he just wasn't going to do that. And Kansas City finally had to pull the trigger and rip the Band-Aid off there and get rid of him there. But it's crazy just because, I've, you know, followed the MLS kind of in depth, pretty much since Nashville SC came in and kind of on and off in the years before that. So this guy, predates my earliest fandom of the MLS. Even he's just been a staple there. He always knew he was going to be there. So you don't see that kind of longevity. You don't see that kind of tenure just in sports in general. So to see him gone, it'll be interesting to see what they do there, especially because I think that's a team that probably wants to be successful, tries to expect to be successful. There's a couple good candidates out there. Obviously, Jim Curtin, who was with the Philadelphia Union for a long time, a successful tenure there. He's out there in the mix. Gary Smith. I don't know that they would want to go from Peter Vermees, who they fired for kind of being a little old school and outdated, to Gary Smith. But Gary Smith's out there. He's got a little NMLS Cup on his CV, so he's an option. Gio Sarvisi is kind of comes up with every opening that comes up with MLS. I think Nashville SC even had discussions with him, or at least talked with him before they decided to go to BJ Callahan. So there's some good candidates out there. There's some jobs coming up in MLS. Crazy. I can't imagine being a coach and getting fired 6 games into the season. You haven't even had time to do anything yet. How do you already get fired? But I think for me, that one had been coming for a long time, because I think he's obviously, like I said, he's been there since 2009. The last 2-3 seasons have been pretty rough for Kansas City. So I think it was I think maybe the ownership, the leadership there just had a hard time getting rid of a guy who's been there that long. But this season just kind of looked at the writing on the wall and said it's time. So that was probably the biggest story in MLS this season so far, is just that guy who's been there that long finally kind of end of an era, kind of like the pre-modern MLS. He was there when there was 12 teams maybe even in MLS at that point in time when he first started. So guy being around that long, being gone, be interested to see what happens there. Be interested to see if he pops back up, because I would not be surprised if some team looks at him and goes, hey, this guy was pretty successful at some point in time. Maybe he's got something in the tank. Maybe he's got something to prove, but that was pretty crazy. It's early days around the rest of MLS. Still hard to gauge who's going to be at the top. Miami's cruising, no shock there, but it's been a fun season. That's one thing I've talked about on my channels. I'm trying to season by season get more and more into the broader MLS. Not just following Nashville SC, but trying to follow the league in general. Because I think it'll make for better content. I think it'll make for me to be a better fan, just to kind of have a better feel for what the other teams are doing, what the whole league looks like. So been trying to keep up with that a little bit more, and that was kind of the big story that broke this week.
Yeah, and I did some research earlier on the Peter Vermees guy, and the last time that they won a game that was a league match was September 24. They had
Oof.
won one in between, but it was either during CONCACAF to one of those kind of not translatable leagues, or it was them versus a USL team, so it wasn't really a win. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on I am also trying to learn more about the league in general. I've been following other teams on social media, trying to keep up with that. FIFA has taught me a lot about kind of the other players and stuff. But there's so much to it, and you can learn everything about one soccer league and then go to another one and it be 2 completely different things, which is, a great thing, but also there's only so many hours in a day that you can look at soccer stuff.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned FIFA. FIFA really is, goofy as it sounds, is a great learning tool for the sport. I used to coach a high school soccer team, and I literally would tell the players play FIFA, because one thing that will help you is to watch when the computer controls the player that plays your position, because the computer does the right thing. The computer makes the players make the right runs, do the right things. It's when you take over and control a player that you make the mistakes. But you can actually from a player perspective learn a lot more about positioning, about when to make runs, about when to be in what spots, from watching what the computer makes the players do on FIFA. And to your perspective, you learn a lot more about who's got what player on what team and what team's strongest and everything like that. Like I, you know a lot more about the Premier League as a Manchester United fan from years of playing FIFA than if I just like watch the Manchester United game each week. So it is. It's funny as it sounds. Like FIFA is shockingly like a great learning tool for the game.
Yeah.
Or I think it's EAFC, whatever they call it
Yeah,
now.
it's
But everybody still calls it
EAFC
FIFA. Everybody,
'25.
it's still FIFA. They're never going to be able to like get rid of that. Everybody's going to call it FIFA. It's like Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter till the day I die. I'm never calling it X. Don't even
No.
try to make me call it X. I'm going to call it Twitter forever.
No, and if you still type in Twitter on like the URL, it still it takes you where. But
Exactly.
also shout out FC 25. They just put in our second jersey, uh,
Saw that. Yeah.
or the secondary kit, whatever it's called. I'm pretty stoked to get this third kit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know how I feel about it being white necessarily, as I'm wearing an all white shirt, but as a bigger dude, brighter colors don't really mesh well and mix together. Coming from a guy who supports a bright yellow team or gold team,
Yeah.
electric gold. So
Yeah. I like white just because we haven't had white yet, so it's something new, something different.
mhm.
But like, I'm a little bit sloppy when it comes to eating, drinking, and stuff like that. I don't always pay the closest attention to like where stuff's going when I'm eating. So like, white is a color I typically do avoid when it comes to clothes, just because it's gonna immediately like first day out of the gate get a stain on it. Like even with the yellow jerseys, like you said, I've been like I got my wife bought me the team anthem jacket last year, and it's like the
Mhm.
gold kind of yellow color, and I was like immediately like, okay, this is very nice of you to buy me this jacket, but you cannot get mad at me when I get ketchup on it, like the very first game that I go to wearing this jacket. And she was like, well, you better not get ketchup on it. I was like, okay, I just won't eat anytime more of this jacket, I guess, because I don't want to ruin it. So, but I'm interested to see what it looks like. I mean, hopefully, like something kind of cool flair to it. Hopefully, it's not just like a kind of generic white kit, but it'll be interesting to see, especially because like the blue one is fine, but I was kind of a little bland. I think we got spoiled. I've said it before. We got spoiled by the Man in Black kit. Just being such a cool kit that like anything we've had since then just seems like ugh. It's not as cool. It's just like a plain yellow jersey. It's a plain
Yeah,
blue jersey. It's like, wow, it shouldn't have got such a cool jersey, right? Like in the early days.
you can't top the Man in Black, especially for the team Nashville. Um,
Hmm.
but sort of shifting soccer talk a little bit. What other things have you been doing in your free time? Have you been watching any movies, shows, playing video games? What's been going on in Matt's life?
Yeah. I thought it'd be cool to kind of like share some stuff like that, just to kind of give a peek behind the curtain a little bit more about what we're kind of into outside of just general talk. Big thing for me recently has been um, I don't know. I'm like we're in a weird spot where like I'm trying to catch up on like all these things. Like trying to think of one that like would be off the beaten path that just not everybody's right now. You know what? I instead of like kind of going like too far off the path, I'll stick to what we're already talking about. I'll keep us on brand for this week. If you like this, if you like what we're doing here, I take a lot of inspiration from other people that have kind of been doing the same kind of stuff. So I'll give you some other Nashville SC podcasts that I think do a really good job of covering the team. First and foremost, I kind of mentioned them earlier. Club and Country USA. Tim Sullivan, West Bowling, they like to say they've been covering the team longer than anybody in their respective disciplines. They do a really good job of kind of like really like professionally like looking at Wes as like a classic like radio voice guy. Tim Sullivan, data analytics, stats guy. So you get kind of the best of both worlds there. Obviously, the big one, like the website that's been just fueling my brain with soccer knowledge this season is our new website, 615soccer.com. It's some of the best like independent soccer coverage we've had, all kind of coming together. They kind of partnered with Pharma Soccer, which is a great podcast that kind of covers the team. It's a little bit mix of like kind of the fan perspective with a little bit more professional media perspective as well. And the other one I like that's kind of probably the most in line with the way we're kind of doing things, where it's like a couple of fans just talking soccer. Electric Gold, just a couple of buddies who get together. They always like to, I'm not a drinker. If you watch my YouTube channel, I'm not a drinker, but like they always started off by like, sharing what kind of beer they're drinking and, what they're drinking each week while they do their podcast. And they talk about the team. They've had some fun. They were like the one thing that got me through late last season. They were like doing some like AI rap songs about the season. And it was like the whole season was falling apart, and they were like finding ways to make it like at least entertaining to listen to their podcast. So shout out those three podcasts. If you're looking for more Nashville SC content, I take a lot of inspiration from those guys. So check them out.
Sweet, yeah. I hadn't, to get me through the weeks. to be honest, I mean, I've been watching a lot of your content, and then I noticed there was a Dylan. I don't know his last name that popped up into your comment section the other day on one of your like last two videos, and he said that he just started a channel, and I went over there and peeped it out. Um, Mostly, the game day vlogs is what I've been watching YouTube wise. But I've been trying to be a little. A goal for myself is I've tried to retrain my attention span if that's possible and not watch
Hmm.
YouTube videos. And so I've been trying to watch more like shows and movies. I watched Goodwill Hunting the other day for the first time, and man, what a movie! That was great. It took
Yeah.
me too long to watch it, but that's such a good one. And then I just finished Winning Time, the show about the Los Angeles Lakers. Who, like I said earlier, I have a history in basketball. I'm a USA basketball certified coach. So any kind of time that they make like a theatrical version of some basketball story, I had to watch it, and that's a super good show. But definitely don't watch it around the kids.
That is funny time. And I think I was just reading something about Goodwill Hunting just yesterday. So that is funny that you watched that. That was like one of the first movies that I watched, like where I was like, this is a real movie. It's not like me going to see like The Lion King or like a cartoon. I was like, I went and saw this like, oh, this is like what movies actually are. They're not just all like dumb superhero cartoon stuff. Like you can actually make a movie that actually is like something. So like that one always just stuck with me forever. It was like that was like the first like kind of like Oscar type movie that I ever
Mhm.
watched. It was like, oh, this is what movies are like. Wow.
It's impressive that they wrote that at such young age in
Oh
terms of
yeah.
like Hollywood career. And I know that you're a Disney guy. You have some Disney vlogs. Uh, I believe you have some old movie reviews too of Marvel stuff.
Hmm.
The art for the new Spider Man just came out, so that was something that I saw and was pretty excited for them to start the next chapter in the Tom Holland Spider Man series. I've always been a
Hmm.
fan of it. I know some people are partial, but I've always liked the Tom Holland Spider Man movies.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think he's probably been the most kind of like comic accurate Peter Parker. I have a special spot in my heart for Tobey Maguire because like he was Spider Man when I was like a teenager. So like there's a little bit of like the guy you grew up with is always going to be your Spider Man. But I've loved the Tom Holland movies. I think he does a great playing the character. He's probably like because weirdly Tobey Maguire it didn't really occur to me when I was watching those movies back in the day, but like he was like already like 35 when he was like playing Spider-Man. So
Yeah.
like Tom Holland's actually like a young guy playing a character who's supposed to be a young guy, so it's like a little bit more accurate from his portrayal. So like I like the way he's taken it, where he's kind of like got that little bit of a more of the nerdy vibe too, where he's like the nerd who just happened to become a superhero type thing too. So yeah, looking forward to that. I will say so the title for the next one's Brand New Day, which I don't think they're doing the same story, but the Brand New Day storyline, this is comic nerd me coming out right now, is one of like the most controversial storylines in Spider-Man history. But I don't think they're doing that version of the storyline. I think they just like that name, like, oh, Brand New Day. That sounds like a fun kind of bring in this new era of Spider-Man. But I was like, when I saw Brand New Day, I was like, oh, that was like the comic book story that nobody liked back in the day. Let's hope it's not that path. But I don't think they can go down that path because I don't know, going down a rabbit hole of comic nerd stuff with that one, so I'll let it go.
I'll have to look that up. I think day is going to be the new new word that they use for each movie, like the home. I think day
Hmm.
is going to be
Yeah.
that next one. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else if we want to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think this is a good start. I hope people enjoy it. I hope they stick around and that we can keep bringing the heat, keep bringing the good content, and people will stick around for future episodes and more content here on 615 Locker Room.
Yeah, and of course, as always, check us out on YouTube and Twitter, not X. We'll have those in the description. Uncle Matt obviously makes some great content. He'll be making, I'm sure, a game day vlog next home game. Uh, yeah, so check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter. Make sure to go support the Backline supporters group, and we'll catch you next week.